Hello and welcome to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center, a resource center located in Naperville for people in career transition. Career Center will bring human resource professionals and other experts together to provide career and job search tips to assist you as you search for your next success. Later on Career Center, Program Coordinator at the Center, Cathy Giacobbe, will join me at the table to share new and exciting happenings at the Center. But first, I am happy to have CCC volunteer, sales manager, Tom Martens on the show. Tom, welcome.
Well, thank you,
Kim.
It's
a long
good
intro.
to be here.
Good
yes,
to have you. So, Tom, before we delve into the things that you help us with at the Center, I want the audience to learn a little bit more about who you are. Sales manager, 26 years?
I spent 26 years with Novartis Pharmaceuticals as a sales manager. My responsibilities obviously were to drive sales, but in addition, I was responsible for hiring and developing my sales staff. So during those times when I was doing that, had the opportunity to read hundreds of resumes, interview and conduct hundreds of interviews. So when I got downsized back in April of 2014, I guess I was too young to stop working, so to speak, but I knew I didn't want to work for pay anymore. Right. So the opportunity, I found out about the Community Career Center and talked to yourself and at that time, Becky, yep. Yes. And they said, you all said you'd love to have me come on board. So started out doing some one-on-one counseling with folks, helping them to perfect their resumes and then also helping them to, improve and perfect their interview skills with some practice interviewing, mock interviewing, those kind of things. And most recently, I was asked to take the lead in developing the men's networking group for the Community Career Center.
Absolutely. You do such a great job. Before we talk about the men's networking group, though, you mentioned downsizing. Did you go through a number of downsizings through your career?
I actually did. The pharmaceutical industry went through a lot of changes, and during the time I was with them, those 26 years, I went through 11 downsizes. Most of those, I was the manager who ended up calling people and telling them that their jobs had been taken away, which was really a difficult thing. So I think from that perspective, I understand how people respond to those things. Unfortunately, the 11th one, they got me.
They got you.
So I've been on both sides of it. I have been, and in previous careers before pharmaceuticals, I'd also been downsized. So I've been downsized. I've done the downsizing. So I think I can bring a unique understanding to help people kind of work through that process. It can be really a tough thing to go through.
Yeah. So how has that changed over the years? As you talk to job seekers and they tell you they've been downsized, how has that changed when you were the person letting the job seeker know? What have you heard?
I think probably I'm seeing more of it from the other side. And one of the things that I've tried to talk with people about is what I guess we used to call the change curve. That there's a psychological, I guess, curve that you go through when you're downsized. It starts out with you're angry because, you're upset. And as you work through it can lead into other aspects like depression and concerns about the future and what am I going to do? So having been through that and kind of helping my folks work through it when I was employed, it's been a unique opportunity to help people in the Community Career Center do that also, kind of so that they understand that it's a natural process that you go through, almost a grieving process that people will undergo. And so I think that's changed in that I think we understand that better today, and so we can help people kind of understand it's okay to be where you are, but you always want to continue moving forward so that you can then present the best case possible to a future employer.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that change curve.
Sure.
So, and hopefully we'll be able to put something up on the screen for our viewers to see. But shock and denial.
Right. That's the first thing that's going to happen. It happened to me when I got called. I was expecting it just from that, but it's a shock. It's like the company says, we don't want you anymore. And you feel like you've been a good employee, and there's that shock, and then there's a denial. Well, that couldn't have happened to me. So that's kind of the lead thing that happens when that goes on. Was there a reason that I got chosen? They didn't want me. They didn't think I was doing a good job. So it's a natural process that we all work through.
So the shock and denial piece, and then there's anger. Typically, how long is someone in that shock and denial piece before they, or does that just change?
It's all individual, Kim,
Yeah.
in my experience. It depends on the person. Some people may stay angry for a long time. Some people may get over the anger within a day or two. The thing to remember, though, is that it's a natural progression. It's okay to be wherever you are, but what you always want to understand is that you need to move through it. You need to get past the anger because, again, a future employer, you know, when I would interview people, you could tell very quickly where they were in that curve. And if you're still retaining a lot of that anger and shock, then you don't make the best case for yourself as an employee to a new employer.
Yeah. A person who's doing the hiring is going to see through that pretty quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's one of the things we try to talk about at the networking group is to understand where you are in that curve and understand where you want to be. And it's okay sometimes to backslide. You know, people will go through interview processes and not get the job. And when that happens, they may slide back down to that depression or a little bit of anger. Why didn't I get the job? Which again, it's okay, but you want to make sure that we're helping folks move through that and get back out to where they're a good candidate for a new position.
Okay, so anger, they're feeling frustration, anxiety, irritation, embarrassment, and shame.
Absolutely.
And then you mentioned depression and detachment. So overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed, just feeling this is never going to work for me. I'm never going to find a new position. I'm never going to get the pay I want. All those kind of things can come into play. And it all impacts people psychologically. And it's one of the things that can affect, and that's, again, one of the things we try to get them to understand in the networking group is understanding where you are and how that's going to affect your job search and your networking ability, the ability to build new relationships.
Yeah, so with depression and detachment, there's overwhelmed, lack of energy, and helplessness. All kind of falls under that.
All those things flow together. Absolutely.
All right, dialogue and bargaining.
Dialogue and bargaining, kind of moving out of it. You're starting to move on now. You're out of the, oh, woe is me, and you're moving into
And hopefully you get to that pretty quickly.
Hopefully you get to that pretty quickly. It can depend on how long the process is going on with the company that is downsizing you. But then you move into the dialogue and the bargaining, where you get into, okay, you know, talking to people and, you know, hey, this is the situation I'm in. Can you help me? Kind of setting up that process of how do I move on, how do I get out of this, and how do I find another opportunity. There's also an aspect of it where you bargain with the company that's downsizing you. You know, hey, are you sure this is going to happen? Is there any way I can work this through? Those kind of things. But I think it's a more positive aspect to the change curve in that you're starting to look towards the future and look for positive outcomes. And that's always a good sign. Even though your downsizing company is probably not going to take you back, although sometimes it does happen, but yet it's a more positive sign that you're starting to look forward. Now, what can I do to find a new position, either with that company, bargain with them, or dialoguing and bargaining with new companies?
All right, so reaching out to others, desire to tell one story, and struggling to find meaning for what has happened.
And that's where we want people to be in the networking group. That's the purpose of the networking group, to get them to that point. Reaching out to others. That's one of the purposes of the networking group is to allow the men to talk to each other and share best practices, to share the situation they're in, to share where they are psychologically to some extent, and to then have others help you work through that. That's a realization you come to, is that I can't do it alone. And you don't have to do it alone. That's where the networking group can be helpful. So kind of working there, and then working on to the more positive aspect, self-image, and then being able to go out and really put your 100% effort into searching for that new career.
All right. So as we continue through the curve, acceptance, which you talked to
accepting the situation and moving on and saying, okay, these are the things I need to do, and now to start planning for the future.
Returning to a meaningful life.
Absolutely.
You need to get there pretty quickly, hopefully.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully they get there very quickly, and hopefully that's what we do at the Career Center, is to help them move through that process. And with the networking group, I'll start to get them to interact with others, build relationships, build those networks, and find new opportunities that they can fill.
So networking group, we keep talking about that. Let's just delve right into that. Men's networking group, we have one for women called Lean In, and then you facilitate the men's networking group.
I facilitate the men's networking group. We just call it MNG.
MNG.
Right now, we don't have a fancy name.
No
like
fancy
Lean In
name.
or anything. Maybe we'll come up with one of those. But we meet once a month. It's on the calendar. It changes from either the second Monday or the third Monday of the month. And basically from 11 in the morning to 12:30 on Monday mornings. And we sit down and basically have some topics of discussion. I believe this month in December 12th, we're going to talk about some of the emotional and psychological impacts of the job search and how a long job search can really wear and tear on you and again, go back to the curve, cause you maybe to slide back down the curve a little bit. So we've got a guest speaker coming in to talk about that and hopefully be a very productive session. In general, the men who come just kind of share best practices. I'll kind of throw a topic out there. How have you been successful in opening up new avenues in your network and open it up for conversation? And we've had some really, really good conversations and sharing some best practices. So it's been an encouragement to me to see the gentlemen really kind of come out of their shells. And I think at the end of the session, they feel a lot better about going out and continuing their job search.
So while there is structure, and there's a topic typically, sometimes that can change depending on where the men are.
Absolutely.
And kind of how that conversation flows.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go in with maybe an idea of this is what we'll talk about. If nobody wants to talk about anything, I can get the conversation started. But then if there's an area they want to go to and they want to talk about, we're definitely willing to go there. That's the purposes. I would prefer it to be driven by the attendees rather than me driving it. And then I can hopefully facilitate discussion and kind of elicit some of those best practices and get all the gentlemen who come out to share, where they're at and what's going on in their lives.
What are the advantages or are there advantages to having kind of the separate networking groups as we kind of wrap this up?
Well, I think that the advantage is that, again, that reaching out to others. You don't have to do it alone. And there are other people who are in your same situation and may have contacts in our networking group. I think that's the one thing I hear from the gentlemen is that you get an opportunity to meet people who know other people. They're all professionals. They've been in other industries. And I think that's the real advantage to it is getting to meet other people who are in your similar situation, experiencing the same kind of feelings and maybe disappointments, and then sharing successes too, so we can all learn from each other. I think that's the real advantage. Yeah.
Tom, you are awesome.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. We are out of time, but I want to thank you for all you do at the center to assist those who are in a job search. Now, don't go away, because when we come back, Cathy Giacobbe, the Community Career Center's program coordinator, will join me at the table to talk about all the great things going on at the center. We'll be right back after these important public service announcements.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Good things happen at the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County. Experience more than 25,000 acres where native plants and animals make their home. Discover the scenic beauty of over 60 forest preserves containing forests, prairies, and wetlands. Explore the wonder of changing seasons along 145 miles of trails. Get outside and discover the good things that happen when you visit DuPage Forest Preserves, the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, where good things happen.
To find out how to protect your family, including your pets, in an emergency, please visit the ASPCA website or Tony LaRussa's Animal Rescue Foundation website. Be a responsible pet parent. Be prepared.
Welcome back to Career Center. I'm Kimberly White, Executive Director of the Community Career Center. I'm happy to have joining me at the table Cathy Giacobbe, the Center's Program Coordinator. Cathy, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, Cathy, share with our viewers what it is that you do at the center, and then we'll go into our...
So I've been at the Career Center for about 6 months now, and my main functions really are to bring programming into the center, to set up workshops and programs within the center, as well as to coordinate our volunteer efforts. So we have about 35 volunteer coaches that we that volunteer at the center, so kind of working through with them to make sure that we're utilizing them the best way we can.
And speaking of our coaches, they come from they have a varied background.
Yep, they have a very varied background, which is great for our members because there's some choices. We have a lot of HR professionals, some corporate executives, some entrepreneurs, and so we're able to try to match our members' needs with the skills that our volunteers bring in, as closely as we can.
Right. So it's a new year, and people make resolutions. I'm one, and I'm sure you probably do as well. But as that relates to a job search, what are some things that people can do, a job seeker should do as they, start off the new year?
Well, yeah, the new year is a great time to kind of reset the meter, so to speak. So it's a great time to get organized, to look at your job search strategy and make sure that it's working, and what's not working, tweak it, and to make those types of changes, to look at your resume and make some changes, make some tweaks or changes based on what has worked for you in the past and what hasn't. So it's a great time to kind of retool your job search.
And looking at your resume, you should do that all the time. You should always have somebody kind of taking a look at that.
But a resume is a work in progress, and it tells your story.
It tells your story.
As your story changes, your resume might change as well. So it's always a good idea to keep that document kind of free-flowing and changing throughout your job search.
Right. So as someone comes into the center for the first time, what can they expect to get from us?
So we have orientations. Typically the first time a member comes into our center is for an orientation, and those happen on Wednesday and Saturday morning. So the first time they come in, they'll sit through orientation, they'll get a general overview of the program, and then what we'll do is set up an intake interview for them. And what an intake interview is them sitting down with one of our volunteer coaches and going through kind of where they are in their job search at that time, and trying to figure out what their short-term plan should be in utilizing the Career Center's resources the best that they can. So typically that would include which workshops should they attend, what one-on-ones, appointments should they attend first, what makes the most sense based on where they are in their job search. That way they have some direction on where they're going to use the center when they first walk into the room.
And that's really important because it helps to create that plan and kind of how the next month or two, hopefully not much more, so more than that, will look like for a job seeker. All right, so typically they'll start with one-on-ones, which is, I think, what's pretty unique to our center. Let's talk a little bit about some of those one-on-ones.
Sure, so like I said, we have about 35 volunteers, and they come from all walks of life, and they have a great varied experience to provide our members. So depending on where the new member is in their job search, they might first meet with someone regarding career exploration. Let's say they don't know what they're going to be doing next, or they don't know what they want to do. They would talk with a volunteer coach about career exploration and what types of things should they be looking into. They could be talking about job search strategy, resume writing, if that's where they are in their job search. Interviewing, we do a lot of mock interviewing, and we've just added Skype interviewing now to our program, and networking. We all know that at least 80% of all jobs are found through networking, so we can't underestimate how much networking is important and how to do it right. So we spend a lot of time working on those things, as well as types things like LinkedIn, which is related to networking and resume writing. Both of those things.
And so a person could come in and they could do, 1, 2, all 6 of those modules.
They could do all 6.
And
they could do all 6 again.
A
lot of times we'll have some members come in and work on their resume, but it might take 2 or 3 times, and they'll be getting different feedback from our volunteers each time to make it better and better so that they can tell their story better.
And the good thing about having the 35 plus volunteers is that you'll meet with different people. And so you'll get some, different understanding or some different ideas on how to move forward.
Right.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about networking, so let's talk about our networking groups and the accountability groups. I know we just had Tom on talking about the men's networking group. And we also have Lean In.
Lean In is the women's networking group, and we facilitate that on either the second or third Monday, opposite Tom's. And that's all for women, and it's talking about kind of the struggles that women go through with the job search and in life in general.
And then the other accountability group that we do is MAP, which is one that you facilitate, and it gets rave reviews. We do a lot of good work in that one.
Yeah, so what MAP is for the individual that needs somebody or some group to be holding them accountable each week to move their job search along. So if a job seeker is realizing that their job search process just isn't moving along fast enough, they're saying they're going to do stuff, but they're not quite getting to it, the MAP group is for them, because our group will hold them accountable for what they're going to do each week. And typically what we see is that job search process move in a lot quicker pace, which hopefully helps them land a little bit faster as well.
Right. And then we have Job Club.
Yep, we have Job Club every Wednesday. That's hosted by the Lyle group, and that's Wednesdays at 10:30 to 12:30.
Yeah, and that's a great networking group. And I know we're seeing numbers just up in that, which is good to have. And that's where they come in and they share and they learn about their. If you don't know how to, create your wow factor, that's a great place to go.
Yep, you go in there and you share your elevator speech and you let folks know where you are in your job search and trade ideas with the other people in the room.
Yeah, it's a really good networking group.
Yeah.
All right, so, and then we have workshops, and lots of them.
We have lots
and
of
lots
workshops.
of great new presenters. So let's talk about some of the workshops that we're going to be covering in January.
Yeah, so in January, I actually think we're hitting almost every part of the job search process. We are talking about networking a lot in January. We're talking about how to reorganize and re-strategize your job search for 2017, interviewing. We are talking about, we actually have a grief and transition workshop going on in January to help people who are kind of at that low part of the curve that you and Tom talked about earlier. So we really are hitting a lot of the different topics, and what's beneficial to that is that our members can look and see which workshops work best for them, what areas they need help in, and then they're able to attend the ones that are the better fits for them.
And so we're hitting all the different modules, the networking, the job search,
resume writing,
career exploration, all of those. And I know Keith Owens does workshops for us. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, so he has a great series of workshops. He has a Strength Finder series is what we call them, and he hits on all those different topics. He has a series of 6 workshops, starting with strengthening your job search and ending with compensation conversations and how to have those. And he hosts 2 of those workshops each time he comes in, and we do it every other week on Tuesdays, and the next series starts on January 10th.
Yeah, so that's good. And it's really important to try to attend each one of those.
Yeah, it's a great...
It's kind of it's a series.
If you can attend all of them, that's the best way to do it. We always encourage our folks to do that. If they can't, they can still come in and take the ones that they, that they can make. But going through the whole series, especially if you're in that career exploration piece of your job search to start with, is the most beneficial.
And so what are some of the other workshops that we have?
Let's see, so this month we have an ACE the interview, staying motivated in your job search. We have an
huge.
Excel workshop in January, so to kind of brush up on your technical skills. What else do we have? Oh, and it's not a workshop, but it falls under programming, is we're going to be doing headshots for folks at the end of January, so people can update their pictures on LinkedIn and use that for their handbills and so forth.
And those are, it's really important to have a great picture on LinkedIn instead of, the selfie picture. It's important to do that. And so we're going to be doing the headshots. There was one other thing that you had mentioned. And we were talking about Lean In. It's a lot like the men's networking group in that we have a topic, but sometimes it changes depending on the group.
It does. The group really runs that program. We bring a topic in, and we may use some materials from that we captured from the Lean In book.
Sheryl Sandberg's
From
book.
Sheryl Sandberg's book. But really kind of once the conversation starts, the group kind of leads kind of where that discussion goes, and we're just there to facilitate it at that point.
Right. I want to spend some time talking about relaunch.
Okay.
Because that's, I think, been very successful. It's a program, and I'll let you talk a little bit about it first, and then I'll add to that.
So what relaunch is we're going to be kicking off the second session in January, and it's a group of 12 people that come together. It's an 8-week program for our members, and really what it's meant to do is to re-educate, re-energize, and re-motivate your job search. So what we'll do is bring these 12 people together in a room, and we have some other volunteers that help as well. And we set some programming with them so that they have a specific one-on-one plan that they need to perform within that 8 weeks. We have special workshops for them that they can attend during that time. And they also do a small group project that helps them remember what it's like to collaborate in a work environment and to kind of get excited about their job search again. And we found it to be really successful in terms of bringing people together, feeling like you're not alone, because when you're in transition, a job transition, sometimes it can be a lonely place. So it has brought people together and has really, we've seen the progress of re-energizing folks in terms of their job search, changing up their strategy, getting new ideas, and hopefully all of that leads to them landing a little bit sooner. Yeah,
and it's open to anyone, that whether you just recently have been displaced or you've been out for some time. And I know with our most recent group, some folks who have been out for some time actually landed. Yeah, so we've been really successful. We had one group go last quarter, in fourth quarter of 2016. And that group was really successful. We've landed a few of those, and a lot of folks are on their way. We'll be kicking off another group in mid-January. And let's talk, we mentioned Skype earlier. Let's talk about our partnership, Skype. So we've been partnering with Accenture, with one of our volunteers at Accenture, to create Skype interviewing. So we all know that interviewing is tough. Well, it's really tough and different when you're behind a camera and behind a computer screen. There are a lot of things that you have to think about that you wouldn't normally think that you would have to. So what we've done is pull together a workshop and some one-on-one Skype interviewing. So when folks have Skype interviews, they can practice them just like mock interviews, and they can be prepared so next time they have a Skype interview, they know what to do. Yeah, those are exciting. I know I've talked to a couple people who've done them, and they love it. So, well, Cathy, we're out of time. Can you believe it? All right. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing information about the resources at the center. I also want to thank Tom Martens for being on this month's edition of Career Center. And to our television audience, if you're unemployed, underemployed, or seeking a career change, visit the Community Career Center at 1815 West Dill Road, Suite 900 in Naperville, or search us on the web to learn more about the resources available to you as you search for your next success. Thanks so much for watching.